Hey, welcome! Today we're going to dive into a really fascinating story. It's all about a special promise that got kind of twisted, a mission that went way off course, and how it all led to one of the biggest misunderstandings in history.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. You've probably heard the phrase, the chosen people, right? It's used to talk about the ancient Israelites. But what did chosen actually mean? Was it like being the star player picked first for the team because you're the best? Well, it turns out it was a little more complicated than that, and a whole lot more important.
So here's the first thing you've got to get. Being chosen wasn't really about being better than everyone else. It was about being given a super important job, a job they were supposed to do for the entire world.
It all kicked off with this promise made way back to their ancestor, Abraham. Now, you got to pay attention to the key phrase here. Thou shalt be a blessing. See? The whole point of them getting this amazing blessing was so they could turn right around and share it with literally every other family on the planet.
Think of it this way. Their whole mission was to be like a big, refreshing well of water in the middle of a desert. They were supposed to share everything they knew about God so that anybody, from any country, could come and learn. Their job was to share, not to hoard it all for themselves.
But, like in any great story, the path wasn't exactly straight. Somewhere along the line, they started to lose sight of that incredible mission. Let's take a look at how things started to get a little off track.
So check this out. This slide really breaks it down. On one side, you've got God's plan for them, to be a shining light. But then you look at the other side and you see what they started wanting for themselves. They began looking at all their neighbors and thinking, hey, we want what they have. Power, fame, all that worldly stuff.
And well, making those choices had some pretty serious consequences. They started copying the very people they were supposed to be a good example for. And even when wise prophets came along and warned them, hey guys, you're losing your way, they just didn't listen. And this led to a lot of hardship. Eventually they were conquered and scattered all over the place, far from home.
Now, after all that trouble, you'd think they'd get right back on track, right? And they did try to fix things, but in a weird way, they swung the pendulum way too far in the other direction and created a totally new problem. They completely forgot the why behind their faith.
Their whole reason for doing things got turned upside out. Instead of sharing God's love just because it was a beautiful, loving thing to do, they started following the rules as a transaction. They thought, if we do all this stuff, God will give us our power back. Their faith became selfish. It was just a way to get what they wanted.
And you can really see how this all went downhill, step by step. Instead of being that welcoming well of water, they basically built a giant wall to keep everyone else out. Then, their beautiful religious services just became empty routines. They were going through the motions, clinging to these traditions that had lost all their heart.
And it gets crazier. To try and, fill that empty feeling where the love used to be, their leaders just started making up more and more rules. We're talking thousands of new, man-made regulations. It became so complicated and heavy that normal people just felt crushed, like they could never, ever be good enough. It wasn't about love anymore. It was just about impossible checklists.
So let's recap. They're obsessed with getting their power back, and their faith is buried under a mountain of rules. This whole situation was the perfect setup for one of the biggest misunderstandings in all of history.
All right, so let's paint a picture of what life was like back then. They were being ruled by the super powerful Roman Empire, and they absolutely hated it. They were sick and tired of being bossed around, so when they read all the old prophecies about a king who was coming, they only saw what they wanted to see, a mighty warrior who would show up, crush the Romans, and make their nation great again.
And this is where you can really see the huge, huge gap between what they were expecting and what actually happened. They were looking for a superhero, a mighty conqueror to solve all their political problems. But the Messiah who actually showed up, Jesus, he was a humble servant. He didn't come to free them from Rome. He came to free them from sin, to heal their hearts, and to build a kingdom of love, not one of worldly power.
The result of all this, well, it's just incredibly sad. Because they were so laser-focused on finding this warrior king, they completely missed the gentle savior who was standing right there in front of them. The very person they'd been waiting for over 1,000 years had finally arrived, and they didn't even recognize him.
And so this ancient story really leaves us with a big question for our own lives, doesn't it? It shows how easily our own hopes and desires can blind us to something amazing. It makes you wonder, right? What truths might we be missing just because we're only looking for the answers we already want to find?